Dear learners, in the previous unit, we have learned about the development and dependency debate because of tourism. Also, the critics related to the development dependency debate. Now, moving further, in this unit, the learning outcomes or the learning objectives of this unit will be identifying the problems faced by third world countries from international tourism. Also, role of different groups in dealing with the problems of international tourism in the third world countries. Now, the problems of international tourism generated in the third world countries was a major concern in 1960s. R.A. Britton, who has worked on international tourism, notes that defining development based on indexes like growing GNP or additional foreign exchange is problematic, as other indexes such as levels of education, healthcare, sanitation, etc. are not considered. These growing concerns of international tourism in the third world countries was realized by certain groups, and they attempted to encourage responsible tourism. Now, some of the initial soundings related to the development of tourism in the third world we will do in this particular unit. International initiatives to establish third world tourism as an agenda for social concern probably began with a consultation in the year 1967 at Tutzing, which is in West Germany. This meeting was organized by the World Council of Churches. At Tutzing, the focus was on the expanding travel and tourism business globally and the need for the churches to respond to it, human dimensions particularly of the tourists. Third world tourism was not yet an issue. However, the meeting did result in a perception that travel changes the nature of the traveler, and some action was taken to evolve a pastoral ministry towards tourists, primarily in North America and Western Europe. Now, this was followed in 1972 by a conference in the Caribbean sponsored by the Caribbean Conference of Churches. Although the participants were again mainly from churches in the region, the difference was that they were people who had experienced the efforts of international tourism in a third world context. The 1972 conference resulted in the formation of Caribbean Tourism Research Center to undertake academic research on the concerns expressed by the participants. The Caribbean Tourism Research Center was funded in part by voluntary agencies, but mainly by governments in the region. Now, coming to our continent Asia, There was a dilemma which has come up during the same time, which is also termed as the Asian dilemma. So, we will first look into this. The slogan of Pacific Area Travel Association in 1977 was the consumer, the only person who matters. Now, this was condemned by the third world, academicians and religious critics of international tourism. The church groups in Asia discovered in the 1970s that though their function was focused on education, development, labor, women or public health, but they kept coming across the problems created by tourism that needed to be addressed. Some of the problems of international tourism that came into their notice were school children were dropping out of school to beg from the tourist or to act as guide. Whatever community funds, which was almost scarce, were diverted to hotel construction, in improving the beaches or resort infrastructure. Also, there was problem related to labor safety at construction sites, as it was not taken care of, as the tourism development was to be done quickly at a very fast pace. There were accidents at Manila's luxury hotels, at convention centers, and they were all covered up. Prostitution was another issue that was coming up and that needed to be addressed. It was initially prostitution was associated with military bases, which has now increased many-fold due to tourism, and this was the case in Manila and Thailand. Sex-related diseases like AIDS and problems of illegitimate and sexually abused children was also concerning the church workers who were involved with public health projects. Now, there was this conference at Penang, which is also termed as Penang Conference. The concern of tourism in Asia began with a small workshop held in 1975 at Penang. It was organized by Penang Conference of Asia. People from around Asia participated and questions were raised about what kind of tourism, what was being developed in the region, beach tourism in Bali, Batu Ferringhi in Malaysia, the funicular railway to Sentosa Islands in Singapore, new developments in Hong Kong, and so on. The effort at Penang was to understand more deeply tourism as a phenomenon and to explore ways of responding to it. Although tourism in Asia brought a number of positive benefits, what was also clear that it resulted in negative impacts as well. Without adequate data on these aspects, however, the conference did not result in a clear perspective on Asian tourism but concluded that tourism was an Asian dilemma. The conference also came up with the report, Tourism, the Asian Dilemma. There were three important consequences of the Penang Conference. One, it succeeded in putting tourism on the political and social agenda of the churches of Asia. In fact, the conference was a little noted, but its conference report sold out quickly. Point number 2, a code of ethics for tourists was produced. This code of ethics was based on the idea that foreign tourists visiting Asia need to behave in such a manner that is not offensive to the host population and that both the tourist and host are culturally enriched by tourism. This simple code of ethics has enjoyed the success as it has been translated into many languages and has been reprinted in church, travel trade and airline magazines, tour brochures and government promotional material. The third consequence of this conference was to encourage organization of international workshop on tourism in the developing countries. Now let us have a look at what was there in the code of ethics for the tourists. 1. Travel in a spirit of humility and with a genuine desire to learn more about the people of your host country. Second code of ethics, be sensitive, aware of the feelings of other people, thus preventing what might be offensive behavior on your part. This applies very much to photography. The third code of ethics for tourists, cultivate the habit of listening and observing rather than merely hearing and seeing. The fourth point is realize that often the people in the country you visit have time concepts and thought patterns different from your own. This does not make them inferior, but only different. Another code of ethics, instead of looking for that beach paradise, discover the enrichment of seeing different way of life through others' eyes. Another code of ethics, acquaint yourself with local customs. People will be happy to help you. Another, instead of the Western practice of knowing all the answers, cultivate the habit of listening. Another code of ethics for tourists is remember that you are only one of the thousands of tourists visiting this country, and so do not expect special privileges. Next code of conduct, if you really want your experience to be a home away from home, it is foolish to waste money on traveling. Another code of ethics, when you are shopping, remember that the bargain you obtained was only possible because of the low wages paid to the maker. Moving to next code, do not make promises to people in your host country unless you are certain you can carry them through. And the last code of ethic to be followed by the tourist or expected to be followed by the tourist: spend time reflecting on your daily experiences in an attempt to deepen your understanding. It has been said that what enriches you may rob and violate others. Once again, the initiative came from Asian church bodies, and the workshop was co-organized by the Penang Conference of Asia and the Office of Human Development of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Asia. The Manila Conference, 1980. Conference at Penang, although limited in the results it directly produced, helped shape the contours of the 1980 International Workshop on Tourism. In September 1980, the International Workshop on Tourism was organized in Manila, that is in Philippines. It was the second major conference after Penang Conference. It was attended by 30 participants from Asia, the Pacific, Caribbean, Africa, and from a few tourist generating countries. It was convened primarily to assess and examine the phenomenon of tourism from a third world perspective. The one most glaring thing that surfaced from the deliberations was that tourism wreaked more havoc than brought benefits to recipient third world nations. The report on the conference continued with this further by viewing that industry as a good source of foreign exchange, employment, and brings cultural understanding are actually myths. The participants reached this conclusion after debating and discussing issues for a fortnight, as well as exposure visits to areas affected by tourism development in Philippines. It coincided with the first World Tourism Conference sponsored by the World Tourism Organization, which took place at the Philippines International Convention Center on 27th September 1980 and was inaugurated by President Marcos of Republic of Philippines. At the World Conference organized by World Tourism Organization, there was participation of 107 delegations of states and 91 delegations of observers to clarify the real nature of tourism in all its aspects and the role of tourism is bound to play in a dynamic and vastly changing world. Also, to consider the responsibility of states for the development and enhancement of tourism in present day societies as more than a purely economic activity of nations and peoples. The significance of tourism in developing countries came up for detailed discussion during the conference. The participants in the World Tourism Conference attached particular importance to its effects on the developing countries. The conference from the beginning pronounced itself on this subject. It stated its conviction that the world tourism can contribute to the establishment of a new international economic order that will help to eliminate the widening economic gap between developed and developing countries and ensure the steady acceleration of economic and social development and progress, in particular of the developing countries. Manila Declaration on World Tourism considered almost all the aspects of the tourism phenomenon. Besides the economic aspects, social, cultural, spiritual also were considered. The conference was also convinced that world tourism can be a vital force for world peace and can provide the moral intellectual basis for international understanding and interdependence. After the Manila Conference, there was recommendation to set up task force, which was one which proposed that concrete steps to be taken to establish a secretariat which will implement the program. The task force travelled through Europe to meet the church leaders in the Vatican and Geneva with representatives of development agencies in Bonn and with the World Tourism Organization. The response they received from these bodies convinced the task force members that if action had to be taken effectively, it would have to come from their own initiative. Eventually, at a meeting in January 1982 at Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea, the Ecumenical Coalition on Third World Tourism was formally established. The founder members of the coalition were the Fellowship of Asian Bishops' Conferences, the Christian Conference of Asia, the Pacific Conference of Churches, and the Caribbean Conference of Churches. Its membership expanded to include the All Africa Conference of Churches, the Consejo Latinoamericana de Iglesia, and the Middle East Council of Churches. The coalition opened its international secretariat in Bangkok in 1982. The original principal aims of the coalition were stated as to focus on tourism and the effects it has on the people of the third world. Another aim was to bring about an awareness of the role of tourism in development models. Further aims were to provide opportunities for poor people affected by tourism to express their views and hopes, also denounce and expose unjust practices in tourism, to stimulate and organize relevant research and to develop a resource center, and finally it aims to foster the implementation of decisions made at the International Workshop on Third World Tourism held at Manila in 1980. The coalition publishes Contours, a quarterly journal, and other publications such as proceedings of conferences where it hosts. The coalition supports those working to secure the rights of those affected by tourism. Another development that took place was through Chiang Mai Conference. It was a conference of 40 participants from 20 countries. It was organized in northern Thailand in 1984. This conference focused on alternatives to tourism organization with emphasis on Asia. It emphasized that even common problems may require culture-specific response. After few months of Chiang Mai Conference, the report of the workshop on alternative tourism with a focus on Asia was released. In 1985, the Resource Handbook on Alternative Tourism was published by Christian Conference of Asia. New regional tourism conferences were held in Fiji, Budboli in Germany, San Anselmo in California, Wellington in New Zealand. These were organized by former participants. Now the audio visuals of these conferences and speeches were being sold. Finally, to conclude this unit, the benefits of tourism in form of earnings of foreign exchange, employment, cultural understanding was of great concern in the third world countries, as there were various negative impacts which were affecting the host population. The problems of tourism in the third world countries was realized by certain groups, and they were instrumental in addressing the social and the environmental issues being faced by the third world countries by organizing the various conferences and coming up with valuable inputs in form of reports. Thank you.